The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining in. Since we have over 150 registered for this webinar, we'll give it another couple of minutes for folks to join in and then we'll start promptly. Thank you. Hi everyone, thank you for your patience. Before I go ahead and introduce our speakers for today, just would quickly like to remind you that you all will be on mute for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to use our chat functionality to type in your questions. We will be taking questions at the end and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Uh, So today we are going to talk about a very critical topic, upgrade to Sitecore 9. We have a lineup of Sitecore and technology veterans to discuss this topic today. We have Greg Baxter, who is the Senior Vice President at edynamic. Greg has spent 21 years living and breathing digital. Before edynamic, Greg spent 8 years at Sitecore, leading business optimization strategies in a global and regional capacity. Greg specializes in writing strategy to drive business uplift using Sitecore's marketing capability. To talk about the nitty-gritty of the technicalities, we have Satish Balakrishnan, Vice President Technology and Delivery at edynamic. Satish is a seasoned solutions architect focused on helping businesses achieve digital transformation and beyond. He has led dozens of digital complex Sitecore implementations and upgrades across multiple verticals. We also have Akhil Mittal, Vice President of Digital Solutions at edynamic. Akhil has been a multidisciplinary consultant for a lot of Fortune 500 firms and enterprising organizations across the globe. He has helped marketers and technologists achieve business results by establishing marketing, technology, digital analytics, cloud, and security solutions. Without further ado, over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to our webinar. I'm super pleased that we have such a great turnout, and I'm very excited about today's event. It's such a big moment in the evolution of Sitecore. So just quickly, let's talk about really what we need to understand to realize the value proposition of Sitecore, and that's really about the first part of today's presentation. What's under the hood of Sitecore 9 that makes it such a compelling reason to upgrade? Then Satish will help with the what. How do we go about this? What are the stepping stones? How painful or not is this going to be? And then Akhil will step in and talk about the most efficient way to upgrade. And upgrading Sitecore is a really key part of business for edynamic. We don't do a lot of other work in terms of web content management systems or marketing systems around web content. We're really focused on that. So we have a lot of insight, and then of course we'll have some Q&A at the end. Just very quickly, 1 or 2 slides about edynamic. We're a global digital marketing agency, and we're really focused on technology with a real fixation on customer engagement and its ability to drive revenue. We don't just produce websites, we produce businesses for our customers. And of course, using tools like Sitecore means that we can measure the success of the revenue uplift using optimization capabilities like personalization and testing and so forth. But Sitecore 9 slams that out of the park with some very new additions. So just to give you a broad overview, we've been a gold partner, you know, forever, since 2003. We've delivered well over 200 Sitecore projects, and right now we have anywhere between 40 and 50 Sitecore projects in flight at any one time, including a lot of retained clients that use us for ongoing managed services to help them keep the lights on, to advise them strategically, to help them stand up marketing campaigns and to help them measure them and so forth. We have 150 or more now, really, trained Sitecore resources. This year we have 6 Sitecore MVPs. I'm super thrilled to be one of them. I'm a VP of Digital Strategy. Our CEO himself is a Sitecore ambassador and was last year a strategy MVP, and we have 4 technical MVPs across the board. We really have spent so much time with Sitecore that we build out a whole lot of connectors in order to extend the ecosystem. So we know that when we go in and talk to you that you probably or maybe have an investment in Markelo, in Pardot, and you might be using things like Brightcove to serve up media and so forth. So we do not ever play the game of rip and replace. So we built tools that let Sitecore talk to all of these MarTech stack pillars so that data can be moved backwards and forwards to optimize, orchestrate, and personalize the journey regardless of the channel that your customer decides to engage with you on. We've also built a number of industry accelerators and reusable frameworks so that we can spark up Sitecore websites really quickly, reuse a lot of features that are commonly used like carousels and news tools and menu items, accordions, the kinds of things that we see that people build over and over and over again. So we have a core framework of these tools pre-built and ready to roll. Without any further ado, let's talk about why you would move to Sitecore 9. And I guess I have a unique view of this. I joined Sitecore when they rolled out Sitecore 6, and I saw the evolution of the tool from the world's best .NET-based CMS through to easily one of the world's best customer engagement platforms. So the whole company moved from a mindset of better publishing through to better engagements. And I'm not going to hammer you to death with statistics around this stuff. We all know it. Businesses really do compete on customer experience. It's too simple for people to just click away and engage with another brand. Forrester says that you need to be super competitive and understand your customers and show deep knowledge. But I think actually Steve Jobs said it best. Get closer than ever to your customers, so close that you will tell them what they need before they realize it themselves. And I think we would all agree that Steve Jobs did a pretty good job of making Apple one of the most successful companies on the planet. We know that 50% of consumers will switch brands and sites if their needs are not anticipated, a stat that comes through Salesforce. We know that on average, and I've been involved with a lot of projects that would make this statistic look small. We know that on average, personalized sites really do generate a 19% bump in sales. And at the end of the day, that is really what a lot of this stuff is about. And it doesn't just have to be driving revenue. It's pushing the right content to people so that they don't have to come to your website with a shovel. It's surfacing things in the information architecture and delivering them information as they need it that is highly targeted and relevant to themselves. And you know, for the longest time, this was the exclusive world of business to consumer. It was almost as if when B2B salespeople logged in and went to work, that everything dumbed down. That has changed dramatically. Those users are engaging with customer engagement titans like Amazon and eBay and all of the rest of them, and they expect now the same capability in a business-to-business environment. You can see the stats there. So there was a time when that wasn't critical in the B2B world, but it absolutely is now. There is no middle ground here. We can no longer build websites that are essentially billboards that just push information into cyberspace. Consumers want to be known, they want brands to understand who they are, and they want to engage in a two-way dialogue, regardless of channel, that's meaningful. So this is one of the reasons I'm most excited about Sitecore 9. I've grown to think of it in my head as the Sitecore 9 singularity, because for such a long time people have used Sitecore as just a CMS, and then there were the subset of users who really used its personalization and its testing capability, but it was still single channel. With the inclusion of Sitecore 9's rebuilt marketing automation piece and the incredible X Connect and the rebuilt EXM, Sitecore's spread for those that don't have a heavy investment in Marketo or ExactTarget or Salesforce Marketing Cloud, we can now really connect that ecosystem much, much, much easier. So let's break this down and take a little bit of a look. At the heart of this is data. No question. So Sitecore X Connect lets you pull out all of that incredibly rich engagement analytics that Sitecore captures, and all of the information that's appended against a unique visitor in the Sitecore experience database. That means their engagement value score. That means the latest thing they downloaded. That means the campaigns that they've interacted with. That means the things that they've done in offline capability or email information. We can now pick up every single piece of data and pull it out of Sitecore and push it into BI tools or CRMs or ERP systems or, you know, literally anything on the planet. Incredibly exciting. And out of the box as it rolls in Sitecore 9, it has inbuilt connectors for Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics 365, and Salesforce CRM. This really means all of the rich customer data that we capture using Sitecore and email and pretty much any touch point can be pushed through to the CRM so that people who are not able to or do not want to log into a web or digital marketing system can see all of that rich data and interact with it. It also means that you can two-way street this. So if I'm building a new campaign inside Sitecore, I can basically upload a list and I can pull my custom segmented list from Salesforce in and create that as a segment inside Sitecore so that the website can personalize on all of that information, or it can be pushed into EXM or marketing automation to really make sure that any outbound comms is as personalized as what it is when you actually have a really well instrumented version of Sitecore. Super stuff, an incredible lift. And this is why that's important. If you're going to win in the customer experience war, you really cannot just be showing one face in terms of a website to everybody that visits, nor can you send the same email to all of your list in a batch and blast kind of concept and let that be some kind of measure of success. Honestly, I get so many emails today that if the first one's not relevant, I'll give a company one more chance. If the second one's not relevant, I am unsubscribing faster than you can blink. So the way we view this, and this is a subset of a thing we call the revenue engine, is that all three of these things must work in symphony to give an orchestrated and measurable experience to the customer regardless of channel. So maybe I come into website from a top of funnel nurture. Maybe Sitecore's email or marketing automation platform in 9 has pushed out a piece of information to a social network or an email or whatever, and somebody's clicked on that link. When they hit Sitecore, Sitecore will know that they've come in from that particular marketing channel and under that particular marketing messaging, and it can personalize before somebody even hits the site. So if that marketing messaging was about product X, the first view of Sitecore, when they click on that link, there's a testimonial about product X. There's a white paper about service X. So the intent of the user is absolutely captured, and as a result, they don't tend to bounce off. Website bounce is around 50% as an industry average. That's appalling. Imagine if you opened a physical store and 50% of people who walked in immediately turned around and walked out. You would be horrified. So by aligning campaign intent with the first thing people see on the website, we're able to defeat bounce categorically. Nissan did this not so long ago, and they defeated website bounce by 30%. You know, an enormous undertaking for all of the marketing dollars that they spend. Here's what's cool. Once we have them on the website, Sitecore can then personalize to push them to the middle of the funnel to say, hey, why don't you log in here and get this extra piece of content, access some gated content, subscribe to a newsletter, whatever that is. And don't forget that at all points and in real time, it's pushing this subset of data through to a CRM using XConnect. So it's going into Salesforce, it's going into Microsoft Dynamics for law firms, it's going into Future or you know, whatever tool they're kind of using, Interaction rather. So I can then push out an email that's aimed at middle of funnel users, somebody who's read the testimonial, that's downloaded the white paper, that's accessed the gated content. And of course, by supplying that all important email address, this person's gone from an unknown user to a known user and given us the ability to have an electronic commercial relationship with them. So we would push out information designed to push people from the middle of funnel to the top of the funnel. So imagine an insurance company. They send out an email about home insurance. The testimonial's about home insurance, the white paper's about home insurance, and maybe there is a calculator that you have to log in to use, or there is some information that is valuable enough to be accessed via email, and I do that. When I get my next email, my middle of funnel email, it really should push me to a close point. Utilize or see the results of that quote calculator, or maybe we've learned enough at that point to contact sales. Only then is a meaningful MQL triggered to show a real lead. So one of the things that marketing has to do to assist sales is really deliver meaningful, qualified, marketing qualified leads that can help measure and shift revenue. So there's a couple of tools in here in Sitecore that help us do that. So the first one is a completely rebuilt email tool. It's now absolutely drag and drop. It lets you do all of the things that you could do with web forms for marketers, the old tool. Of course, because it's Sitecore, you can test every single component of an email that you generate, and it basically lets you measure the entire journey from one goal to the next. So a much stronger, completely reworked email campaign tool that gives you the ability to make sure that every email you deliver is targeted at users and picks up things like their profile. And don't forget, with XConnect, that profile can actually be leveraging stuff stored in Salesforce. The next really big part of this is the marketing automation piece, which has again been completely rebuilt. It's also now a drag and drop tool that gives you the ability to create very sophisticated marketing automation pieces, but this isn't just designed to push out, you know, one email, then wait 2 days, push out the next email. Again, it can be triggered off events in Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. It can be triggered off on-page activities like triggering a specific goal, like downloading a white paper, like doing something that segments, that indicates what segment that you're a part of. So it really is a massive upgrade, and really, in all honesty, for the first time in my belief, it means that Sitecore can be viewed as a completely self-contained system. The third part of this is the forms capability, which so often is the point where people go from an unknown user to a known user. It can be the trigger point for personalization, it can be the trigger point for marketing automation, and certainly anyone who fills out a form needs to have that data occupy the experience database so we can personalize off it. but the information here should be fed through to a CRM to start an account, or if that's a known user, append to an account. So this is a complete drag and drop environment. It lets you do things like signal whether things are mandatory, and of course it's just designed for a marketer to use. So this is the point where somebody really starts to look like a customer. And of course, because it's a Sitecore piece, it can be A/B tested. You know, sometimes it's better to run a form with fewer fields and get more visitors. Other times it's better to run a form that collects more, but maybe a few people bounce off it. So, you know, run a test, run both, and see which one drives the best results for your business. So XConnect, the new forms module, the new marketing automation piece are absolutely critical to really make the entire ecosystem work end to end. Now, if we top that off with something that will arrive, I believe, in July, Sitecore Cortex, we have an incredible opportunity here. As the business, the territory lead for Sitecore business optimization strategies for many, many, many years in at Sitecore, one of the truisms that I realized was we can go out and build, you know, as a technology company or as an implementation partner, like where I am now, really, really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, somebody has to manage the personalization rules, somebody has to manage the optimization capability, somebody has to manage the engagement value scale, and so forth. By plugging this into a machine learning layer sitting on Azure, the machine can do this. It can automatically detect who your segments are. And you know, this will never be matched by people trying to brainstorm this, because it's real data in real time. I remember an example of a Japanese university that was offering 30,000 courses to hundreds of millions of visitors a year. You literally could not write enough rules and logic manually and by human hand in order to make a meaningful experience for all of them. But it was a very early adopter of plugging into the Azure machine learning capability, and the system wrote its own rules. And it was a monumental success. So fast forward into the near future, the ability to do things like maybe plug your website into the weather forecast if you're a restaurant, and see when you should hire staff because it's going to be sunny and beautiful and the restaurant will be full, or maybe reduce staff because the next 2 weeks are going to be rainy, or look at what you might need to do if you're a school about changing based on a whole host of Internet of Things capabilities. So the world is expanding incredibly fast, and Sitecore is expanding at just as quick a rate to let us move forward and do that. So these few things together really do change the game in terms of Sitecore. The marketing automation piece is not just a kind of a way to blast, you know, mass stuff onto a social network feed. It picks up and understands who customers are. It is absolutely critical for segmenting the personalization on your own website. This is how you build an on-website nurture path. So if I come to a site and I look at a white paper, don't show me the white paper again. Show me the next asset that your business wants a customer to see, and once that's been consumed, put me on a nurture path to sign up to a webinar or to make a sale or to enroll in a university, whatever it is. The second big thing is a completely robust email experience manager with incredibly strong analytics. And remember, all of these tools via XConnect can plug into any data source you have and pull in segmented lists and optimize the website, email communications, and social marketing communications based on really who they are and what they're looking at. You can push this straight into Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. People that don't have those will have some kind of CRM that will be bristling with APIs. So, you know, if we don't have that connector already built, it is not a big deal, because of the open nature of Sitecore's data and the API connectivity of most third-party systems to connect those dots. One of the most tantalizing things is possibly to pick all of that stuff up and push it into a BI tool. and really have that marketing data lake effect where you can see every interaction and you can write unlimited reports. Like, show me everybody that hit the website within 200 kilometers of New York who looked at this particular product, who is 23 and single or married or whatever that might be. So another truth here is that no web marketing product can write enough reports to satisfy your unique business needs. By being able to push all of this data into an industry standard BI tool like Microsoft BI, Tableau or whatever, means you have the ability to slice and dice data, gather insights, and market better than you ever have been able to before. Here's a really quick example. I'm just about out of time. I have to hand it over very quickly. Excuse me. This is a bank called QT Mutual Bank. They're really small, and they wanted to run a campaign that went across their website, email marketing, and social. So they built a game. They built a game where kids went to the website and gave their teacher a virtual apple every day, and the winning school who got the most apples got a prize from the bank. Of course, kids got their parents involved in all of that. So there was one thing that they really wanted to do. They wanted people to iteratively answer a pretty serious questionnaire about how much money, sorry, not how much money, but who they banked with, who their mortgage was with, who their insurance was with. So at first, if the site and game detected that a child was using it, it would switch all of that stuff off. If somebody logged in who was a parent or an adult, all of that stuff switched on. But they didn't ask 100 questions in one hit. They asked it over time. Secondly, they pushed out emails to say, here's happy hour, click now, go back, and instead of 1 apple, your teacher gets 5 apples. And they also built and managed a Sitecore a Facebook page around this. And at a random hour between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock at night, it would post the same happy hour stuff to a Facebook feed, and people would click on that and get bonus apples as well. Because the third part of their strategy was, we want more likes than the biggest bank in our country. And this was a really small bank, and it was a pretty big ask. So they wanted to capture EDMs, electronic names. They wanted people to answer the survey, and they wanted more likes than the biggest bank in the country. They ran this campaign for 2 weeks, and here is the outcome of a campaign that cost $60,000, that was run by one guy, that was very cleverly put together, no doubt about it. They drove a 60% increase in sales, because if you were on that game site, this marketing micro site, and you said that you banked with, had a mortgage with Bank A, the next time you went to the QTMB site, it would compare that and it would say, here's Bank A's cost, here's our cost, we're cheaper, switch. So an incredibly clever sharing of data across channels. They got 40,000 new EDM names in that 2 weeks, and the metric was 20,000. But here's the kicker. Out of the 40,000 people who signed up to play the game, fully 37,000 completed their surveys. Think about the marketing intel in that. 30,000 people telling you who you bank with, what your mortgage is worth, who your insurance is with, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And that worked because nobody ever saw one big giant survey that looked onerous and scary. They iteratively over the 2 weeks answered questions, 4 extra apples, never really aware of the totality of the information they were delivering. And of course, it was personalized based on who was in the game. It's pretty uncool to try and sell a mortgage to a 9-year-old. So they had to, of course, segment all of that stuff. Over the 2 weeks, with the social connector in play and the two-way work between the game site, the company website, and Facebook, they had 1.25 million Facebook hits and 1.75 million Facebook votes in 2 weeks. And that actually was bigger than the largest bank in the country where they ran this. You can hear that I'm an Australian, probably it was an Australian thing, but what a phenomenal outcome. A 60% measurable increase in sales in the quarter after a personalized omni-channel 2-week campaign. We have, and I'm really out of time here, We have a full strategic model to get there. We call the integration of Sitecore Experience Cloud, CRM, and marketing automation the revenue engine, because when it is connected, we can orchestrate, measure, and influence customer behavior across any channel that they come to you on. And of course, that means an unparalleled customer experience. To get there, we run a very short, sharp 30-day exercise called time to value. And that's where we come in and we really build out Sitecore to be optimized towards conversion. Because the reality is, to use a baseball analogy, marketing automation is the pitcher. Sitecore is the catcher. Sitecore is where you drive leads, and those leads are tested and optimized via personalization for maximum conversion, and CRM is the scorekeeper. I hope that makes a lot of sense. I'd love to talk to any of you about this, so get in touch afterwards. I'd love to open dialogue about how we can measurably change the outcomes you get from a marketing perspective. So I think I hand over now to Satish.
Yeah, can you guys see my screen? Craig, Akil?
Yes, Satish, you're good, man.
Yeah.
On you go.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Craig, for walking through why to upgrade. I will be focusing on what needs to be done, like what are the primary steps we need to take before we start doing any upgrade, and primarily like any upgrade, right? Like it starts any project as usual, like it starts with the planning phase. I will walk through like what are the few things we need to do during the planning stage of this Sitecore upgrade. So like typically we do the Sitecore upgrade like in different environments. Like we typically starts with the developer's workstation, and then we do it in the integration or development box, and then we go to QA, staging, and all other environments we do before we really do the actual content like the version upgrade in production CM and CD servers. So most of the time, like our customers need to run both the environment, like if you are in version 7.2 or 8, like during this upgrade process, you may need to utilize do the business with the current version along during this upgrade. So typically, like it's better to evaluate like what are all the different types of licenses you have. If there is any additional license required during this upgrade process, and all the stuff we can validate. And your Sitecore account rep should be able to help you with the providing with the temporary licenses and all the stuff to do this upgrade. So the first step during this upgrade is like identify your license need and contact the Sitecore support to get if you need any additional license, a temporary license to perform this upgrade. And from our past experience, like we have noticed like one big pain point for the upgrades are related to the Sitecore modules we use in this website, and the marketplace modules are like other third-party components that we use in the website. Typically, like it takes lot of time. So it's better like during the planning phase to prepare and complete inventory list of all the modules that you are using in the website currently. For example, like if you are using like a geo IP location, like if you are using any of the marketplace modules, there are a lot of modules in the marketplace. So like for your CDN and any marketplace modules or any connectors from the marketplace modules, or if you have a translation service if you are using, it's better to identify all the modules that you are currently using in the website, and then make sure like all these modules are supported to the new version. Like are they supported with Sitecore 9, or are they continuously managed by the marketplace team, like the developers who created the product module, or is it being supported yet? If it is not supported, like let's plan what is the replacement and identify the replacing, and plan for enough time, like if you need to rebuild that component, and all the stuff needs to be taken care during this planning phase. And The next one is the site search. Like whatever the search we use, right? Like it's not comes with the Sitecore. Like it's an external tool. So if it is Solar, Coveo, or whatever we use, like Azure Search, everything is been developed. It's a non-Sitecore item, so it's always wise to check whether if you are using a hosted solution, make sure like the hosted solution supports your Sitecore latest version. Or if you are using like on-premises, like for example, if it is a Solar, there are a lot of limits. Like with the version for version 9, it supports like 6.6 and above. So make sure like what version you are using, and plan the time to upgrade the site search as well. Like do site search and plan like enough time during your upgrade process. And another pain point we notice for our customers are like the configuration files. As you all know, like the Sitecore manages like tons of configuration files, and also like we can say like if there is a web.config file and also a whole bunch of Sitecore configuration files. So before we start doing any upgrades, like we need to make sure if there is any changes we did in the web.config files, take a note. Like if there is any custom settings we added, if there is any if you are using any web services, like make sure like endpoint definitions, whatever we added, make a note of that one, so that after upgrade, like you can add them back. And same thing with the Sitecore configuration files. Like if you are following the best practices suggested by Sitecore, like having a project-specific configuration file and applying all the patches to it instead of updating directly to the Sitecore configuration file, you may not have a lot of issues. But it's always better to make sure install like if you are in version 7.2 or 8, like install a base version of it and compare your production configuration files with the base install, and make sure like there is no changes, or if there is any changes, take a note so that you can incorporate these changes like after your upgrade in the new configuration files as well, or follow the best practice, start creating a project-specific configuration files and put all your updates in a project-specific, like apply them as a patch rather than directly updating in the Sitecore config files. And I just need to mention about the showconfig.aspx file, which comes part of the admin tool in Sitecore. This is a very good tool to compare like between like your production version and the vanilla version, and make like if you see a new pipeline is being added, a new processor is added, this tool will help you like which config is adding that, which config is getting added this processor and all that information. So this is a very good utility to use during your upgrade process. Yeah, another major thing like we heard like after my site performance went down after upgrade. So it's our recommendation is like to benchmark the current metrics, right? Like basically like perform a performance testing and note down all the response time, right? For my home page right now, it's loading 2 milliseconds. Like what is 2 seconds? Like if my product page is in 3 seconds, like when how the page is performing when 20 concurrent users are accessing site, how the site is performing like 50 concurrent users. So benchmark all these metrics. So after upgrade, like we can repeat the same testing and then identify like if there is really a performance issue, if it is like what caused it. Like so at least during the planning phase, it's always better to benchmark that one, not just the page response time, but also like more about like CPU utilization or memory consumption and all the stuff. Like it's always better to monitor over a period of time, and then like after upgrade, like we can continue monitor, compare the metrics and make sure like there is no degrade in the site performance and all the stuff. So, and also like it may be a time to validate like your hardware and like whether your hardware meets all the Sitecore 9 requirements and specifications, and also like software, like are you in Windows 2016, or are you using like SQL Server, what the supported version of SQL Server, even that from the development server perspective, like if developers are still using Windows 7, it's time to upgrade to 10. because like one of the requirements to install Sitecore 9 is on the dev machine is like Windows 10. So all this information needs to be validated and vetted during your planning phase. So on top of it, like the go live date, right? Like the identifying the go live date, which should make sure like it falls on you. It gives like enough time, enough window to revert back, or whether make sure like you are doing this migration like on your low traffic time. And also like it's important to announce your marketing team like not to do any content updates for over a period of time. Like basically like you keep the content same as the content like which you tested, perform the regression testing and all the stuff. So announcing a content freeze and documenting a step-by-step instruction, like what are all the code files I need to move after update, what are all the config changes, manual config changes I need to make. All preparing a complete documentation is very important, and also like proper rollback plan, right? Like keeping all the database backups, and if the files like file system backups and everything needs to be accounted during this planning phase. So like now I'll go over like what we typically do. Like we just covered the planning and like what are all the approaches we take and what are the best practices we need to follow during this upgrade process. Like Akhil will explain like about various options we have, like various multiple ways to do the upgrade. Like 80% of time, like what we do during upgrade is like a go version by version upgrade. For example, if you are in version 7.7 or 7.2, if you are in 7, like you'll go to 7.2, then go to 7.5, then 8, 8.1, 8.2, and then you reach the 9. So one version up at a time, like we will upgrade. So it's during upgrade, like it's always like at least like remove all the custom config files which you added, and so that like you it's better to do the upgrades using like a plain vanilla Sitecore instance, at least from the configuration and DLL perspective. So like, and then add your custom configurations. If you have any additional config files needs to be like project specific config files needs to be added, like that can be added after the upgrade process is complete. So typically, like these are all the components we touch like during upgrade, like database gets updated, like Sitecore configuration files needs to get updated, and also like having a better understanding of all the new Sitecore files, like what are all the DLL'S getting updated, what are all the changes happening in the Sitecore directory, and understanding the new files and all the stuff is one of the major requirements, so that as soon as you did the upgrade, like the team will be able to validate and make sure like upgrade was done properly. And the code updates, like for example, if you are using a module that is not supported, like for example, if you are the web forms for marketers, like most of the sites is using, like now during the upgrade, like it's better to plan like what it takes to use the latest form, and the type of code updates if needed, anything like that needs to be accounted as well. And like typically during upgrade, like team perform upgrades like in CM CD server, but if you have any specific environment like a separate server for processing or to manage session state and all the stuff, that one also needs to be upgraded during this upgrade process, so that the upgrade will be smooth and there is no need to roll back and all the stuff. So as I mentioned, like the process, right? Like we need to repeat the process in several environments, and typically we start with the developer's workstation or an integration box. So it's like doing your developer workstation and integration box, QA, and all the stuff. That's a very like that gives a good practice for that practice to learn all the upgrade steps and repeat the process. Like if anything goes wrong, like understand which, like particularly if you are far behind, like if you are migrating from 7.2, that series, like there may be needs to repeat and repeat several times to make sure like there is no config files were missed during this upgrade and all the stuff. So like practice the upgrade several times in the developer or in sandbox environment. And reach out to Sitecore. Like if you're not able to, if you get an error during upgrade, like Sitecore supports always support. Like reach out to Sitecore support, and they are always ready to help. And also, as I mentioned, like in the previous slide, like it's always better to start with a vanilla instance, in the sense like we don't want to add like if you particularly on the sites where there are a lot of customization, it's better to remove the customization and the config files and add the config files later. Make sure like remember to upgrade all the modules. Since in the planning phase, if you take all the inventory, like upgrade all the modules as well during this process, and also like document each and every steps or problems encountered, because like we need to repeat this in several instances. Like we need to repeat the same process in QA, we need to repeat the same process in UAT before we do it in the production. So it's always better to document each and every step, and also like if we have encountered any issue, what steps, what action you took to recover from it. That's more important. And also like if you have database level any customization or anything like that one also needs to be taken care. Like a lot of customers put their custom tables and all the stuff in the Sitecore database. It's as a best practice, like it should be avoided. But if there is any that tables also needs to be moved to the database and tested thoroughly before we start doing it in the production environment. These are all some of the recommendations. Like so, as I meant, like I've been repeating the same thing again. Like it's always better to start with a vanilla out of the box Sitecore instance. Like not from the content perspective, it's more from the coding, like from the configuration, DLL'S, and all the stuff. Like it's better to replace them with the version which comes. Like if you are in 7.7, take the config files which you received from part of the base install, and then start from there. Rather than if you have a lot of customization, like the upgrade process will fail, and debugging and fixing them may take a lot of time. Then adding your customization later point. So yeah, if particular, and another thing, if you receive any Sitecore patch support files, DLL'S and all the stuff, it's better to remove them, or at least like make sure like the art fixes. Most of the time, art fixes are resolved in the latest version. So remember to remove the DLL'S so that it will not conflict during the upgrade process is one important stuff. And we need to like if you have like your staging environment, like it's just a content manage. Like if you are using a one single server, like content management and content delivery in stage environment, it's better to have a repeat test in an environment like very similar to production. Where you have the separate content management, separate content delivery. If you have separate processing servers, session state servers, and all the stuff, like it's better to test in an environment which is very similar to production before we do the production upgrade. And yeah, like and another thing is like review the log file. Like Sitecore writes everything in the log, so review the log files for error during upgrade and after the upgrade. So you know, like is it something like new? If there is any issues in the site, like which even the site renders fine in the front end, there could be some issues like which may arise, which may come. You may see like in the future. So it's always better to review the site, all the Sitecore log files, and make sure like there is no error. If there is any error, like again, contact the Sitecore support, and they should be able to help you to fix the error. These are some of the upgrades and tips and tricks. Like edynamic, like we always suggest our customer like to upgrade regularly, like at least like 12 to 18 months. Like it's better to upgrade. So that will be that will help like from the security perspective, and also like your upgrade process will be much smoother if you follow this regular upgrading the version. And as I mentioned, like planning is very key. So as in like yeah, like for our 5 slides on the planning, like make sure like all the steps, whatever the modules and everything needs to be documented. All the customization needs to be documented, and like any code change requires that needs to be planned ahead of time. So, and engage a Sitecore partner, because they do the upgrades like day in, day out. So they know if there is any issues, they know how to fix them if there is any issues. So, and also and practice, right? Like practice this process in several times, and announce a content freeze a couple of weeks before, and do it in the take a backup from production, and repeat the upgrade process in the content, like which is live data, rather than doing it in a test environment content. So that's more important. So that's why like the content freeze comes into a very key item. So any new content added after our testing, after our upgrade, like we can catch like all the issues if we can do it in the production ready content. And engage Sitecore support. And also like we found like Internet Explorer, like Edge may be different, but Internet Explorer, typically we don't use Internet Explorer for this upgrade process. And like during upgrade, like the initial load may take a lot of time, so if you don't want to see like a lot of timeouts and all this stuff, like it's better to increase the timeouts in the config files. So yeah, these are some important points. And now I will hand over to Akil. You will be talking about like how to do the upgrade, and he'll walk you through the different process of upgrades. Akil.
Many thanks, Satish and Greg. So yeah, I can see the clock ticking. I'll be very quick today. We all know, and I still emphasize this point, that upgrade is just a stepping stone. The main objective is of course to move closer towards a superior customer experience initiatives such as personalization or a more secure environment. So the key phases of upgrade, I love the classic way of breaking down every process into 3 phases. That's how I define even an upgrade process. So the first phase being planning and risk assessment. Satish rightly highlighted, this is the most critical part of the entire upgrade process. If not done carefully, we may end up in a situation, and I've seen a lot of those, where the entire upgrade might be required to be rolled back. And risk assessment needs to be done by a senior architect who has experience of doing multiple upgrades. These risks need to be registered, and a mitigation plan should be prepared before we start the upgrade. That can be done in multiple ways, of course. We'll see it in the upcoming slides. I'll just say that testing is probably the most cumbersome part of the entire testing exercise here, of the entire upgrade exercise, and depends really on the volume, such as the number of pages, forms, components, integrations, etc. Final step is really to upgrade the surrounding ecosystem. We'll talk about things like search, analytics, commerce, and all these components really need to be made compatible to the new version of Sitecore that we have brought it into. And last not the least, growth plan is something which as marketers we miss out a lot of times while doing an upgrade, but that is certainly the step that leads to the maximum ROI for an upgrade. So let's talk quickly about the risk areas, and I was talking about highlighting and preparing a mitigation plan for them before we start. The first form of assemblies or customizations. Such pieces of code often are written to enable specific functionalities, and many times they lay hidden beneath the larger code. If not noted descriptively, such customizations lead to errors in those functionalities post-upgrade, and that time backtracking becomes a huge effort. Often we see that CM and CD environments have differences. This might be done for internal testing purposes or whatnot. This really leads to a lot of duplication of efforts while we are doing an upgrade. So always prefer that we don't have those differences within the CM and CD assemblies. Third-party integrations are often tricky. Satish also spoke about them in detail, but a lot of these third-party vendors, they take their own sweet time to release their compatible version. So before you jump onto the latest version, so right now we are running in a 9.0 update 1. So do check with your third-party tool vendors whether their tools are compatible with the latest version or not, or do they require an upgrade as well. Sitecore's additional modules, they also bring their own complexity post-upgrade. For example, web form for marketers, Greg also highlighted, they are no longer supported. So can be trouble if we want to stay with web form for marketers even on Sitecore 9. Similarly, XDB, as you might be aware, has got a totally different architecture in Sitecore 9. Especially if you are using MongoDB, that is no longer supported directly. So there is something called as Cosmos DB that has to be brought into the picture here. Search is the factor I've seen popping up the first post upgrade as the issue, especially if you're using Lucene. Please note that Lucene is no longer supported in Sitecore 9. So in case you are still using Lucene, have a plan to migrate it to a better search such as Solar, Kovi, Azure Search, or whatever feel like, but have that plan ready in parallel while doing the upgrade. In any circumstances, please do not try to run Lucene on Sitecore 9. That can lead to a lot of failed efforts. Last not the least, content freeze is something which has to be planned realistically, practically with the business teams. A lot of time it happens, we decide on a go live date, but the last stage where we require the content freeze, the business teams, the content option teams, if they are not aligned, if they don't have it on their calendar, this can become a huge bottleneck for the entire upgrade exercise. Terms of any technology, every installation is unique, every upgrade process poses new challenges, and I'll just talk about three very quick confusion creators, as I call them. For example, a lot of times all of us are there, should we go with a stepwise upgrade? For example, if we are on 7.2, should we go to 7.5 and then move ahead, or should we directly jump to, say, version 8 or version 9? So there is no direct answer to it. It really depends on the kind of complexity of your instance, the kind of customizations, integrations done. My personal suggestion is always to do a stepwise approach, until we know that the environment we're using is extremely simple and have minimal complexities. Though it's rare, but still we see a lot of cases where sites are non-responsive. The biggest question is, should we make it the changes in UI first and then go for an upgrade, or should we do it vice versa? Again, no specific answer, has to be decided by the architect during the initial planning phase. We all have heard about Helix. That is the future of service-oriented architecture, and hence updating the framework is something that we need to plan while performing an upgrade. I'll quickly talk about different approaches to upgrade. The first one that we see is, so we'll talk about the two most common approaches, and what I'm doing here is I'm taking an example of upgrading your house. That's what I could correlate it better. The first approach is really migration. And migration, what is done, say a fresh new house is built in a separate place, and then the content, say for example, your furniture, is migrated into this newly built bigger house. So the biggest issue in this kind of Sitecore upgrade approach is that customizations and integrations that we had built in the previous house or the version have to be really rebuilt for the new instance. Talking about the second approach, which is, say we are to build the new house on top of the current house itself, and this is typically done by the step-by-step process, keeping the existing customizations, integration, etc. intact. So yeah, so talking about the tools here, a manual approach had been the traditional way people had been doing, but this is really the most tedious and prone to a lot of human errors, of course. You must have heard about Sitecore's Express migration tool. That tool really follows the migration approach that we just discussed. Greg initially spoke about a lot of innovation that edynamic keeps turning out. One of them is the Auto V Upgrade tool that we have built in-house, and using this tool, this was really launched much before any other tool was launched, including the Sitecore Express migration tool itself. And because of the maturity curve that the tool has achieved, it is really mature, has performed over 2 dozens of successful upgrades by now. The results are really, really promising compared to manual upgrades. So the numbers we are displaying here are in comparison to the manual upgrades. The tool can really save a lot of time, more than 75% of it. And really in terms of quality, it's 90% much better. So it really helps marketers save a lot of time, a lot of budget, and then we can plan for more critical initiatives to come across post-upgrade. I'll quickly talk about 2 case studies. One of my favorites, this is in one of the largest pulp and paper product manufacturer in North America. So for them, upgrade of 13 sites from 6.6 to 8.1 could happen only in flat 1.5 weeks because of the tool. And this I'm talking about the time when 8.1 used to be the latest version. Talking about the latest one, which is 9.0.1, this is for Hexagon, and Hexagon's environment is really very unique. They use their own component-based core framework and then multiple Sitecore instances that run over 20 websites on top of it. So it had numerous amounts of integrations, customizations built into their environment. And really, when we decided to do the upgrade part was quickly done using Auto V Upgrade tool, and then we started with other aspects such as the search. So they were still using Lucy, which became so we had planned it out that we have to upgrade Lucy into Solar in the beginning, and that really helped in the entire process. Similarly, they were using MongoDB, and the same got migrated to Cosmos DB. So, I see we have ran out of time here. So I'll skip the demo part. Paresh, in case we have any questions we want to take at this moment, let's take them. Oh yeah, if we have a few minutes, I can just quickly showcase you the upgrade tool that I was talking about. Just give you a quick glimpse of it. The way it happens, it is installed on the grid instance, what we see, and I'm just skipping a couple of steps here. So once we install it on your instance, we see the Sitecore upgrade tool on the environment. And there you go. So it automatically detects what is the current version, and we can select what should be the target version we want to go. So if we want to go on a stepwise approach, we could have selected 8.1, or we want to jump step. Since this was a test instance, we knew there are no complexities. We directly jumped onto it. And depending on the size of the instance, it does whatever that loading the packages, unloading it, installing them, all that part is done at the back end by the tool itself, and then it simply throws away the results. So we can see the results are shown. The best part that I like about the tool, it is pre-integrated with Selenium testing tool. So we can, using the tool itself, we can just upload our test cases here and we execute them, and there we go. So in case everything gets successful, we can see in case typically in most of situations we will see some errors, some things popping up. We can quickly catch them using the logs and go and remediate them. So yeah, that was it from our end. Paresh, over to you if we have got any questions.
Yeah. Hi, Akhil. I think we do have one question. Let me just quickly pull it up. So it says, Does omni-channel personalization mean we make new content? What has been your experience?
Okay, that's a really good question, and I'll take that one. When we run the revenue engine and when we run the time to value component, which is the optimization of Sitecore, we recognize that if we go too far with this, we're going to, in all likelihood, not just create content that needs to be created, but also an ongoing management complexity for our customers. So we really look at, rather than building new content out entirely, we look at what we can surface that already exists in the information architecture. So in all cases, we're likely to make some new hero images. We might make one or two graphics that work on follower pages, but mostly we're really lasering in on stuff that already exists in the architecture. And what we're doing is just making sure that if my omni-channel behavior shows that I'm a particular profile, will surface the correct content. If I'm creating an email, I can reuse content from inside Sitecore, and of course I can reuse content inside Sitecore to push to social as well. So it's not about creating more, it's about creating once and publishing and optimizing everywhere.
Okay, thanks, Greg. And I think in the interest of time, we'll just take one last question. So, this upgrade tool by edynamic, Sitecore Auto Upgrade, can we license it and run the upgrades ourselves?
So I'll not suggest that we don't really encourage a separate licensing for the tool, because the real aspect of having a tool is the methodology that we need to follow. If we don't really follow the methodology and framework that edynamic has laid down while doing so many upgrades over the past, no such tool can help. So we don't really license it. We provide it as a service to the clients, so that we ensure that the upgrade is done and the sites go live as required.
Okay, thank you, Greg, Akhil, and Satish. At this point, I would like to thank everyone for joining in. We will send over the recording of this webinar shortly. And thank you, everyone. You have a great day ahead. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.